I am not the kind of person who gets lost. That might sound like pride talking, but it's really just observation. I've built my entire adult life around knowing exactly where I am and exactly where I'm going, because I've seen what happens to people who don't pay attention. There are maps memorized in my head that I could draw from memory if you asked me. Every shortcut and every construction zone and every gas station with the decent coffee. My name is Dylan Hayes, and I drive for a living, or I did, before the GPS started showing me places that shouldn't exist. I work as a regional sales coordinator for a medical supply company, which means I spend 4 or 5 hours every day behind the wheel of my 2019 Honda Accord, and after 7 years of driving these same routes through Kansas City and the surrounding counties, I could navigate every street with my eyes closed if someone asked me to. I know which gas stations have the cleanest bathrooms and which ones to avoid. I know which stretches of highway have the worst potholes and which construction zones are permanent fixtures at this point. I know the difference between the kind of traffic that clears up in 10 minutes and the kind that means you should just turn around and find another way, and I take a certain pride in that knowledge, in the control it gives me over my daily existence. So, when my GPS started acting strange on the evening of October 14th, I didn't panic right away. I figured it was an update glitch, maybe a satellite issue, something that would resolve itself once I got closer to my destination and the system could triangulate my position more accurately. I was driving to a meeting at a client's office across town, a quarterly review that I'd been preparing for all week, and I was running through my notes in my head when the device made a sound I'd never heard before. A kind of static-laced chime that seemed to come from somewhere inside the speaker itself, rather than from any audio file. The screen flickered twice, like a light bulb about to die, and then the route changed. Not a minor adjustment, not a recalculating message followed by a new estimate. The entire map disappeared and was replaced by a satellite view of somewhere I'd never seen, and the route it showed me wound through areas that looked rural and green and nothing like the urban sprawl I'd been driving through for the past 20 minutes. I said out loud, "That's not right," because I talk to myself when I'm driving, and the GPS didn't respond because it's a machine and machines don't care what you say to them. I watched the little blue dot that represented my position moving along a road that I wasn't on and couldn't see from my window, and I felt the first cold thread of something I didn't want to name snake through my stomach. I was on Interstate 70, heading east, and the GPS was telling me to take exit 401B in 1.5 miles, except I knew for a fact that I had already passed exit 401B, that it led to a Costco and a dental office complex I'd visited twice last month, and that the next exit wasn't for another 4 miles. I kept driving. The exit came up faster than it should have, the way things do when you're watching for them. And I made a decision in that split second that I've been trying to understand ever since. I took the exit because maybe the GPS knew something I didn't. Maybe there was construction I didn't know about. Maybe the highway had been rerouted while I wasn't paying attention. And I told myself all of these reasonable explanations as my car descended a ramp that curved more sharply than it should have, and opened up onto a 2-lane road with no streetlights and trees pressing in close from both sides. I've gone back over this moment in my mind more times than I can count, trying to reconstruct the exact sequence of events, trying to understand what made me keep driving when every instinct I have was screaming at me to turn around. The road was asphalt, at least, dark gray and cracked in places, with a yellow center line that was faded almost to the point of invisibility. And I told myself that this was fine, that I was just in a part of the city I didn't know well, that GPS systems sometimes take you through neighborhoods instead of main roads because they're optimizing for distance rather than familiarity. But I drive through every neighborhood in this metro area, and I had never seen these trees before, had never seen this particular shade of green and shadow, and the way the branches seemed to lean toward each other across the road, like they were having a conversation I couldn't hear. The GPS kept speaking in that same flat, slightly distorted voice. Turn left in 800 feet. Turn right in half a mile. Continue on current road for 12 miles. And each instruction felt more impossible than the last, because 12 miles on this winding, narrowing strip of asphalt felt like driving into the throat of something alive. I tried to call my wife, Rachel, but there was no signal, which shouldn't have been possible because I was only 20 minutes from downtown, and cell towers don't just stop working because you've made a wrong turn. I rolled down my window to see if I could hear any traffic noise, any sign of other people, any indication that I was still part of the world I knew, and what I heard instead was silence. Not the comfortable silence of a country road at night. This was a different kind of silence, a heavy silence, a silence that seemed to have texture and weight and the quality of holding its breath. I drove for what felt like an hour, but was probably 15 minutes, and the road kept curving in ways that didn't match the GPS's straight-line distances, kept leading me through turns that seemed to double back on themselves without ever actually bringing me back to where I'd started. The trees were thicker now, older, their trunks wider than my car was long, and there were no houses, no mailboxes, no driveways, no signs of human habitation at all, except for the road beneath my wheels and the faint outline of something that might have been a power line running parallel to me through the darkness. When I finally saw a sign, it was attached to a rotting wooden post at the edge of a clearing, and I had to stop the car and get out to read it because the letters were so faded and covered in lichen that my headlights couldn't illuminate them properly. 3 letters were visible: K-E-L. Nothing else. No numbers, no arrows, no indication of what direction K-E-L might lead, or how far away it was, or whether it was a town or a street, or someone's last name painted on a sign that had been abandoned to the forest. I got back in my car and drove another mile, maybe 2, and then the GPS said, "You have arrived," in a voice that sounded almost satisfied, and I was sitting in front of a field full of nothing. Just tall grass and shadows, and the sense that something was watching me from inside the darkness. Not hiding exactly, just waiting with the patience of something that knows time is irrelevant and has nothing but time to spare. I sat in my car with the engine running for a long time, watching the field and trying to convince myself that this was still some kind of mistake, that I'd taken a wrong turn and ended up in farmland on the outskirts of the city, that I just needed to find a main road and reorient myself, and everything would be fine. But the field wasn't farmland, not really. The grass was too tall and too wild, growing in patterns that suggested it hadn't been tended in decades. And there was a structure in the center of it that I hadn't noticed at first, because my eyes kept sliding away from it the way they slide away from something you don't want to see. It was a house, small, maybe 900 square feet, with white siding gone gray and shutters that hung at odd angles and a porch that sagged in the middle like it had given up on standing up straight years ago. I turned my headlights toward it, and the light seemed to have trouble reaching the walls, seemed to dissipate into the darkness before it got there. And I got out of my car because I needed to understand what I was looking at. What impossible thing had appeared in the middle of this field that shouldn't have existed? The grass grabbed at my ankles as I walked toward the house, wet and cold, in a way that didn't match the mild October evening. And I could feel the silence pressing against my ears like hands trying to cover them. The porch steps creaked under my weight, even though I tried to step lightly, and the sound seemed to travel much farther than it should have, echoing off the trees and coming back to me from directions that didn't make sense. I tried the front door first and found it locked, then tried a window that was missing one of its shutters and found that the window was unlatched but painted shut. And as I stood there pulling at the swollen wood, I noticed something that made my breath catch in my throat. There were names carved into the window frame, dozens of them, overlapping and carved at different depths, some fresh and pale, and others so old they'd almost been weathered away, and they were all the same name. Dylan Hayes. My name. My full legal name that I don't use professionally, that almost nobody knows except my family and the people who processed my driver's license application when I turned 16. I stepped back from the window and looked at the house again, and this time I noticed the garden, a neat rectangle of raised beds visible from the side of the house, connected to the main structure by a path of stepping stones that had been swallowed by the encroaching grass until only their edges showed. I walked around to the garden because I couldn't make myself go back to the car, couldn't make myself drive away without understanding what was happening, and the beds were full of dead plants, stalks that had collapsed into themselves, leaves that had rotted into a black paste at the base of each stem. Someone had taken care of this garden once, had planted it and watered it, and watched things grow in these neat rows, and then they had stopped and the garden had died and no one had come to clear it away. At the corner of the nearest bed, stuck in the soil like a marker in a cemetery, was a wooden sign painted in careful letters that had faded to the color of old bone. It said Dylan's Garden in handwriting that looked familiar in a way I couldn't explain. The way you recognize your own handwriting from years ago, or your mother's handwriting on an old birthday card. And I reached out and touched the sign, and the wood was warm under my fingers, warm like something that had been sitting in sunlight, even though the sun had set an hour ago, and there was no sunlight here anyway. I heard something then, from inside the house. Not a voice, not a footstep. A sound like someone breathing slowly and steadily. A sound that seemed to be coming from everywhere at once and nowhere at all. And I ran back to my car and drove away without looking at the GPS. And I didn't stop driving until I was back on Interstate 70, with the city lights spread out in front of me, and the exit I'd taken nowhere to be found in my mirrors or my memory. I drove home that night in a daze, following regular streets and regular directions and regular traffic patterns, and when I walked through my front door, Rachel asked me why I looked like I'd seen a ghost, and I said the meeting ran late and we went to bed, and I didn't tell her anything, because what would I have said? My GPS took me to a house that doesn't exist, where someone carved my name into the window frame and planted a garden with my name on the sign. She would have worried, and I didn't want her to worry. And more than that, I didn't want to say the words out loud because putting something into speech makes it real in a way that keeping it locked inside your head doesn't. I told myself for 3 days that it was exhaustion, stress, some kind of mental glitch that would resolve itself with sleep and normal routine. And I avoided driving, took the bus to work and back, spent my evenings on the couch, not paying attention to whatever Rachel wanted to watch on television. But I kept thinking about that garden and that sign and the breathing sound that had come from inside the house. And on the 4th day, I plugged my phone into the computer and pulled up my GPS history to see if it had recorded the route I'd taken. The route was there. Every turn, every mile, every instruction the device had given me, all of it recorded and time-stamped and stored in the cloud like data from any other trip, except that when I tried to look at the map view of where I'd been, I found a gap. A blank space on the screen where the route line should have continued. And when I zoomed in on that blank space, I could see faint traces of something underneath, like words written on a page and then crossed out and written over, except the page was digital and the crossing out was permanent. I went back to the spot on the interstate where I'd taken the exit, and I stood there for an hour watching traffic flow past. And there was no exit where I'd found one, just a concrete barrier and a sign pointing to an on-ramp 2 miles further up. I went to the county assessor's office the next day during my lunch break and asked about property records for any house in the surrounding area, any house at all, and the clerk ran my search and came back empty-handed, told me that according to their records, there was nothing in that stretch of county land except farmland and forest, no structures, no buildings, no permits filed for any construction in the past 50 years. I went back on the 7th night. I told Rachel I was working late, and I drove back to that stretch of highway, and I watched for the exit, and I waited, and eventually it appeared, shimmering in my headlights like a mirage that decided to become real, and I followed it down the ramp and onto the road that shouldn't have been there. This time I drove faster, eager to get answers, and the house was waiting for me exactly where I'd left it. And this time, the front door was open. I walked inside and found rooms full of furniture that I recognized and didn't recognize at the same time. Furniture that looked like it belonged in my grandparents' house, but that I had never owned and didn't know how I could possibly have seen before. There were photographs on every wall, photographs of places I'd been and people I knew, and moments from my life that I remembered clearly, except that in every photograph there was something wrong, something slightly off about the angle or the lighting or the expression on my face, something that suggested these weren't the photographs I'd taken, but copies of copies of copies that had drifted further and further from the original with each generation. In the back bedroom, there was a desk covered in papers, handwritten journals that were my journals, filled with entries in my handwriting describing days I didn't remember living. And as I stood there reading page after page of a life that was mine, but that I had never experienced, I heard the breathing again, closer this time. And when I turned around, the bedroom door was slowly swinging shut, and there was something in the doorway, a shape that was shaped like a person, but moved like something that had only recently learned how people move. And I ran. I've been back 7 more times since then, and I've stopped counting because the number keeps going up, and each increment feels like a failure I don't want to acknowledge. The house is always there when I find the road, and the road is always there when I look for the exit, and the exit appears on the interstate like a wound that heals as soon as I pass it, available only when I'm looking for it and invisible to everyone else. I've started to understand what's happening to me, or at least I've started to accept that understanding might not be the right word for what I'm doing. The GPS isn't malfunctioning. The GPS is showing me where I live. The coordinates it gives me aren't pointing to a place that doesn't exist. They're pointing to a place that exists on a different map. A map made of memory and time and something I don't have a word for. And every time I drive there, I leave something behind. I've noticed it in small ways at first. A coffee mug I couldn't remember putting in the dishwasher. A book missing from the shelf with no gap where it had been. Rachel asking me if I'd gotten a haircut when I hadn't, and couldn't convince her that I hadn't, because she was looking at a photo on my phone of the two of us at a restaurant I'd never been to. I understand now that I can't keep going back, that every trip pulls me further away from the life I've built, and closer to the life that's been waiting for me all along. But I also understand that I can't stop, that something in me has been waiting for this road since before I was born. And now that I've found it, I can't unfind it, no matter how much I might want to. The GPS is telling me to come home tonight. I can see it in the way the screen glows when I start the car, the way the route appears before I've even typed an address, the way the voice has softened somehow from flat and mechanical to something almost gentle, almost welcoming. Turn left in 800 feet, it says, and I can feel the pull in my chest, the hook that's been setting deeper with every visit. And I know that this time when I follow the road, I won't be coming back to the interstate, won't be seeing the city lights or feeling the texture of my own bed or hearing Rachel say my name in the morning. I know that the house is me and I am the house, and the garden with my name on it is the place where I've always been buried without knowing it. And I know that when I arrive tonight, I'll finally understand why the sign said what it said, and why the window frame was covered in my name, and why the breathing never stopped, just got closer, one room at a time, one visit at a time, until there was nowhere left for me to run. My name is Dylan Hayes. I am 32 years old. I have never been late to anything in my life. But tonight, I'm going to be exactly on time for something that's been waiting for me since before I knew there was something to wait for. And when I arrive, the GPS will finally go silent, and the road will finally end, and I'll be home.